What's going on, guys? It's NYPrepper here, and in this video I'm going to talk to you guys about the coming winter and why I think this winter is going to be absolutely massive. And I think the next couple of winters are going to be very, very strong. And there's a lot of evidence for that. And I'm also going to talk about how to prepare. I'm going to quickly mention how you should prepare for a cold winter. And I'm going to be releasing some winter survival videos and cold weather survival videos over the next few weeks. Um, so what you're looking at here is this is the El Nino Southern Oscillation sea surface temperature anomaly animation from the National Weather Service. And what we see here is a strengthening La Nina. All right. And if you don't know what a La Nina is just a cooling of the water in the tropical Pacific, the equatorial Pacific. And what happens is when that water cools down, it has a global climate effect. All right. Because the tropical Pacific is a huge body of water. It holds a lot of the world's heat. Okay. It's a massive amount of water. And if that water cools down, what happens is it affects the global climate. All right. It's kind of like having a wood stove in your house. And, when that wood stove is running, it's hot. But when that wood stove is not running, you don't have wood in there, the house is going to get cold. And that's the best analogy I can think of with the tropical Pacific. The tropical Pacific is just like a wood stove for the entire world. And when we go into a La Nina pattern, it cools down the whole world. All right. So what you see here is the animation loop. And I want you guys to focus here on the equatorial Pacific. All right. If you see here around the equatorial Pacific, you can see this area of blue coloration. All right, the blue coloration indicates cooling of the water, okay? And this is from starting in August up until mid-October, all right? You could see in August, the water wasn't really that cool, all right? You could see it was just starting to cool down. And now we're in September, and in October, you can see this huge area here in the southern Pacific turning blue. All right, you look at this massive area of blue water. All right, and that blue indicates below average sea surface temperatures. Okay, and so you see in August we were about 0.5 degrees Celsius below average. And then you can see a large area of 1 degree Celsius below average, which is a moderate to moderately strong La Nina. All right. Anything that's 1 degree Celsius below average is considered a strong La Nina. Okay. So we are starting to get into a strong La Nina, and it's just, the middle of the fall right now. We're in, October, going into November. So, there's going to be a little bit of a lag from the time that the water cools down until the climate responds. But I do believe that the timing is basically perfect in the sense that we're going to peak out with the La Nina right before the winter starts. And there's always a 1 to 2 month lag after the peak of the La Nina or the El Nino. And so I think we're going to get hit with some Arctic air outbreaks this year in January and February across the northern tier of the United States, the Northeast, the Midwest, the Rocky Mountains. Okay. So if you live in any of these areas, you need to be on red alert. You need to have your cold weather gear squared away. Even if you live all the way down into Texas, all right, there's a snowstorm in Texas right now that's dumping a foot of snow, very unusual. And, on top of everything else, we have riots in Philadelphia going on. the last 2 nights. We have a stock market that's crashing right now. It's down 2.5% across the board. Everything is down. All the indexes are down. So here's another thing that we got to throw into the mix, on top of the threat of an EMP and nuclear war, which is always a threat. So be ready for the winter, guys, because a lot of people are not talking about the winter. A lot of preppers are focusing on this election, and they're focusing on, rioting and stuff like that, which is, good to focus on, but you can't always focus on one thing all the time. And, a massive winter could potentially cause an SHTF situation, especially when you have other things that are happening already, like food shortages and things like that. I mean, snow plowing may be slowed down a little bit because of reduced staffing levels due to COVID. And there may be shortages in supplies, critical supplies like winter clothing and sleeping bags and heaters, firewood, salt. There may be shortages in that, especially as we head more into the winter. And so my advice, there's already shortages right now of a lot of boots are out of stock, winter boots. A lot of gloves are out of stock. It was hard for me to find salt the other day. We actually have a little snowstorm coming here Friday night, and temperatures are going to go down into the low 20s here, or around 20 degrees Friday night, and that's the day before Halloween. That's very cold for the end of October. That's not really normal weather for October, I guess you could say, but what's normal, right? So this winter will be very cold, guys. La Nina is strong. And then on top of that, we also have the solar minimum, which, is going to take a while to get out of. And we may never get out of it fully because the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration is predicting they're predicting a grand solar minimum for the next solar cycle. All right, solar cycle 25 is predicted to be below average. All right, which could potentially plunge us into a global cooling period. And the last time this happened was during the Little Ice Age, which was the Maunder minimum. And during the Maunder minimum, it was about a 50 to 100 year period where the sunspot cycle was very weak. And there was a grand minimum, and there was a global cooling that happened. Some of the rivers around the world that never freeze were freezing over solid every year. In London, for example, the best example is in London, the River Thames would freeze over every winter, and they would have frost fairs on the river itself. They would have like flea markets on the river because the river would freeze solid. That's how cold it was, guys. Okay, can you remember any time in recent history when the river in London froze solid? So, I'm not saying that it will get that cold like during the Little Ice Age, but there could be a global cooling period for the next 10, 20, 30 years, if we have a depressed solar cycle and a grand solar minimum. So, now's the time to prepare for that and start stockpiling things, because we see how the sheeple, when they panic, they go to the store and they buy toilet paper and all kinds of, they buy toilet paper and meat, and then there's nothing left, So, be ahead of the curve so this way you can beat the sheep and get everything that you need now, I'm going to do some separate videos on winter gear and winter survival, and I'm also going to attach a video that I did on winter survival on the top of this video here. But, you're going to want to have a survival kit in your car. Me personally, I always have a set of winter clothes in my vehicle. I have, winter boots, snowshoes, winter jacket and pants, wool socks, appropriate headwear. Like I typically have a fur bomber hat and a wool face mask. And in addition to that, I also keep a sleeping bag, military sleep system in my vehicle, as well as a few pieces of firewood. All right. I go to the store and I grab one of those firewood, bundles that you can buy at a gas station. I throw one or two of those in my trunk just in case I were to get stranded in a snowstorm or my car breaks down and it's -5 outside and it's in the middle of the night and I don't have signal, because I do live in a rural area. So there's a lot of places that are, there's no cell signal. And if I break down, I'm going to be miles away from, my house. So if it's really cold, I may have to start a fire to keep myself warm somewhere on the side of the road. So, I always keep a little bit of firewood in my car. Another thing, too, is obviously have your bug out bag with you, which, should have your fire starting gear. And you should also throw some hand warmers into your bug out bag in the wintertime. So I always keep those things in my car. And, around the house, what I do is I have a sleeping bag for everybody in my family, which right now is just me and my fiance. I have a military sleep system, which has two sleeping bags that can be joined together, plus a Gore-Tex shell. Just in case our power was to go out in the middle of the winter, I have a warm sleeping bag that we could immediately throw on to stay warm while I figure out an alternative heat source. And I always have a propane heater, all right, on hand. All right. Even if you have a wood stove, you should still have a propane heater on hand because you never know what could happen. Wood stoves are not always a guarantee. It takes time to get them going. They can become clogged. Your wood could be wet. You could run out of wood. There's something could happen with the seals and you're not getting a good draft, or the smoke is leaking into the room. Wood stoves require a lot of maintenance, and things can fail. So you should always have a backup plan, and, a propane heater is very good because all you got to do is just push the button and you have instant heat, like a portable buddy heater. And you can get a propane tank for a barbecue. Keep one of those in your house, all right, in case the power goes out or your heating system fails. You always have that backup heating system that you can use. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this video. One last thing I want to show you guys is what you're looking at here is the Arctic oscillation. All right, the Arctic oscillation just shows the polar vortex basically, and anytime the Arctic oscillation goes negative, like these dips here, you see these three dips that happened recently. One was around the end of August. One was the beginning to middle of October. There was one last week as well here. And we're increasing, we're going positive on the AO right now. All right. But what it's showing here is there's going to be a dip this weekend. Okay. And that's why there's going to be a cold air outbreak. Like here in the Northeast, we're expecting cold air this weekend. I told you guys that Friday night over here, we're expecting our first snow of the year and temperatures down into the low 20s. In the mountains, it could be even colder than that. But and then it's going to rise. They're forecasting this big rise here. But then after the rise, it's going to plummet down. Okay, so sometime around mid-November, you guys should be ready for the possibility of a cold air outbreak. A lot of people after this weekend, the temperatures could moderate a little bit because you see this positive track here. All right. And a lot of people may let their guard down and say, well, maybe it's not going to be that bad this year. And then it's going to, the ceiling is going to fall and it's going to plunge down. The AO is going to plunge down. And then there's going to be some kind of a cold air outbreak. And we even have one model that's showing this massive plunge here in the beginning to middle part of November. Okay. First to second week of November, you see this one outlier model here that's showing this huge plunge in the AO, which would mean massive cold snap across the U.S. and North America, massive snow possible, and record-breaking cold. All right, so first to second week of November, look for some kind of a cold snap. Okay. All right, guys, so that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And again, I'm going to be doing a lot more winter survival and cold weather survival videos this year. So stay tuned to my channel for more survival videos. And you could browse my playlists. I have playlists on cold weather survival and winter survival. So browse through my playlists. I'm sure you'll find something useful for you. And as always, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.